Dario Amodei and Anthropic want to replace 50% of you with AI. But at the same time, we have internal reports coming out of Google that their AI adoption of these tools and utilization is about the same as John Deere, the tractor company. So both of these cannot be true at the same time. AI has reached the stage where it feels complete to spectators, but it is incomplete to reality. I'm sure you've seen this phenomenon in your life before, but let's take it outside of AI. There's this Chinese proverb that I used to think about a lot, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The man on the journey of 100 miles should consider the first 90 miles the first half, i.e. perceptually, the last 10 miles of that journey only represents 10% of the trip, but it's going to feel perceptually like half of the time. I'll tell you how I know that. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from a very small town in Ohio originally, and in the Midwest, you drive everywhere. You don't fly. You drive to Chicago, you drive to Columbus, you drive to the East Coast, you drive to Florida for vacation sometimes. You drive everywhere. So there's a lot of time on the road. And I can tell you, if you're on an 8-hour drive, not like a up the coast 8-hour drive, like 8-hour drive through cornfields and just like this all looks the same for the whole 8 hours. You're on an 8-hour drive. The last hour feels the same length as the entire first 7 hours of the 8-hour road trip. Perceptually, it feels like that's half of the trip. You're just, I'm so worn down. I just can't wait to get there. And that's the stage of AI that we're at now. But there's a disconnect. And that disconnect has to do with this same distribution. I've been hearing this great saying tossed around that AI is like fentanyl for midwits. AI is like fentanyl for midwits. And I think that's one of the best assessments I've heard of the tooling so far, and the people that are really, really, really locked into it I've seen this distribution anecdotally. Your midwits, your 110 to 125-ish IQ in the middle, halfway, right? There's another half distribution. They are like a moth to a flame with AI tooling. They know enough about how to use it that it can help them. It can accelerate them in the ways that it accelerates everybody and that it is actually helpful. But they're not quite intelligent enough to know what its limitations are and what large-scale technological development and progress looks like. So they can't extrapolate and realize that it's 90% of the way there, but that missing 10% is actually half of the journey. If you contrast that to people with a sub-110 IQ, most of those people just either don't trust it, or they use it for some genuinely helpful use cases. Give me a recipe for this thing, or give me some things to do in this town that I'm visiting. But they're not trying to replace their whole workflow or answer all of their emails with it. Or they just totally write it off and they're an AI doomer and they're just, I'm not going to use that. Fair enough. And then anyone over 125 IQ, they're using it intelligently. Like I said, these tools are helpful. There's no debate about that. A lot of YouTubers say that all of this stuff is nonsense, and it's plain not true. A lot of it is useful. So people that are above 125 IQ are typically using these tools in their workflow. They're using them in novel and new ways, but they also know enough about the history of technological progress, how these things roll out, and they also have a sense about the limitations when they are evaluating this tool against something like a human intelligence, and they can feel that difference. And historically, they may have a sense in their bones that this may be 90% done, but that last 10% of development to get this to AGI is going to be about the same amount of time it took to get to 90%. It's very, very difficult. This is a universal law that pops up everywhere. I'll give you another reference to half to 50%. Here's 50% odds on how AI turns out for the workforce, because I like to wargame all of these scenarios, and nobody really knows if the promise of AI is going to pay off in the way that they say it's going to pay off. So if it goes well, AI replaces our jobs. As I said in the opener, Anthropic replaces 50% of white-collar jobs within the next year. That's AI succeeding. That's AI succeeding. That is what Sam Altman wants. That is what Dario Amodei wants. That's what every rich, financially incentivized person in the tech scene and venture capitalists want, because their money is tied up with it. They have made a big bet on this. They want it to succeed. And so if it succeeds, that's mass unemployment. Mass unemployment. That's you and me out of work, no jobs, no way to make money. It's on a massive societal scale. And then it begs the question, what good is the AI if it's producing a bunch of things? Nobody will have the money to buy any of the things. That's the Citrine hypothesis. You'll recall this from long ago. A couple of months ago, when I was doing an episode on the AI bubble, we delved into the Citrine hypothesis. That's the Citrine hypothesis, is that AI pays off. It massively accelerates production of consumer goods, of industrial goods, but then nobody has money to go anywhere, do anything, or use any of them, so it grinds the economy to a halt. So that's the best case scenario, right, is that AI succeeds. The worst case scenario is that it turns out to be, as I've theorized, a massive bubble. Every investor is over-leveraged in this at this point, significantly. Every company's product strategy is over-indexed on AI at this point. And when I say over-indexed on AI, I don't mean from a product point of view. I mean that they are relying on the AI inference to remain cheap enough to keep up as part of their project. So everybody, we are all in the same boat on this, whether you are pro-AI, anti-AI, like we are all affected by if it goes bad. And if it goes bad, you have data centers that aren't being used, you have bills that need to be paid, you have a lot of these companies like Google that were selling bonds, that were selling parts of their company long-term, hoping that the AI bet would take off as a sure investment for their investors. So this gets ugly really fast if AI also doesn't succeed. So that's another 50% or half distribution, is 50% chance AI succeeds the way they say it's going to succeed and the economy is destroyed. 50% chance AI fails the way that they say it could never fail and the economy is destroyed. And I'm sure if you're subscribed to this channel, this is something that maybe I've put words to that will seem somewhat obvious to you at this stage of the game, that we've come about 90% of the way. These tools have achieved high level of usefulness and some business value, although the financials are murky on that. But the last 10%, that last gap to the proposed AGI, if it's possible, or to totally replacing all workers, that's the hard part. That's the hard part, and everybody knows that. Everybody with thinking and independent mind, at least, which is a diminishing group of people these days. And the diminishing group I hope that I am attracting to this channel, and I see evidence that I'm largely attracting to this channel in the comments. It's actually Wednesday. It's halfway through the week when this video will be finding you. Thank you for watching. And it looks like it's starting to get dark and it might rain.